Hello. We're trying again. Gonna see if we can get round the park. I know I put a post up on my YouTube page yesterday. Why is there a metal post? Who knows? Anyway, saying that there probably wouldn't be any more, but also playing it by ear. It was supposed to be really heavy rain again today, but it's not at the moment. It's quite clear and there's a breeze, and it was raining last night, but I just want to see. I don't want to not do things. I did a video yesterday, but I couldn't do it at the park, so I abandoned it and I went to another place. But by the time I got there, it was a bit later and it was quite busy. And as I've said before, I don't really like getting people on camera, even though when you're out in the public, you're allowed to. You know, I still wouldn't like if it was done to me, so I either try and move the camera away, and if I can't, I edit the video. When I was going around this other park yesterday, there was just too many people. So, trying to start a topic of conversation was impossible, because you're constantly having to stop the conversation. It's not just about stopping the film, you're stopping the conversation. And when you're editing, it's not going to make any sense when you're cutting it back together. So that's why there was no video yesterday. I put up the last part of my Doom 3 The Lost Mission playthrough. So Doom 3 is done now, and we're on to Doom 2016. I've got a couple of those videos recorded already. So we'll see. I'll start to get them uploaded, I think. It's not looking promising, is it? It is normally a good indicator. This hasn't gone anywhere from where it was yesterday. You really do start to see how bad public facilities are. You know, when you've got pathways that are impassable. You know, I'm lucky at the moment. I can do this, but if you were, I can sort of jib it a little bit where it comes to walking around things. If you couldn't do that, you'd have to go the long way around. If you were somebody who wasn't as able-bodied, it'd be difficult. And there's nothing worse than feeling that you're trapped. So anyway, but what I'm going to do in the new year is try and find other places to go. So when it does get like this, we can go to other places. See, a couple of others that I do know would be bad with the weather. They'd be bad. So, I mean, like being flooded. I mean, one of them is like a water nature reserve, so that's going to be even worse. Anyway, we'll get to the park, see what it's like, and if I can find a way around, it's not too bad, but we'll see what it's like, and we'll see what we can come up with from a conversational perspective. So I'll catch you all there. Well, we're in the park. Lake's gotten bigger. That's not a good sign. I've just seen one of the most ridiculous things ever. Somebody was walking a toddler. I mean, barely able to walk, toddler, into the really deep puddle of water. Toddler falls over in the puddle of water, face down all over. Now, the kid, the toddler, I assume it's the mother, perhaps I shouldn't, had a what do you call it, a buggy. Lets the toddler walk by itself into the deep puddle, and naturally the toddler falls over, like I said, face first, all over. Toddler's over there now crying. Honestly, some people should not be allowed to breed because they are clinically not right in their head. And it's coming this way. Jesus Christ. Still walking the toddler, by the way. Not putting the kiddie in the buggy. Anyway, this is going to be a laugh, isn't it? Let's see what's round here. So we're off to an absolute diamond start today. Well, this bit's passable. So that's something. You know, it is actually quite cold. You'd be wondering why you would select a day like this to bring your kids out when they're little toddlers. Anyway, let's get on with it. So we might be able to pull this one off, providing I don't have to dodge too many muppets. The subject of what I wanted to talk about today is one that could be, well, it could be viewed as being a little bit emotive, I suppose. A little bit divisive, I suppose. But it doesn't need to be, because it's just an opinion. But I do see a lot of people desperately trying to make money out of the retro gaming scene. Or should I say vintage gaming? Because retro is a style, you know. It's just it's a fashion. You can have something that's only just been made brand new, but it's retro style. Doesn't mean it's vintage. I think there's a difference. I think the word retro does get, it's too widely used. I make retro games. No, you make retro style games. That's what you do. If you release a game in the modern era, it's a retro style. That's what it is. It's not a game that came out 40 years ago. That's a vintage game, like a vintage car. You know, that's a car that's what is that thing now? Is it 25 years? Is that the what they call after something older than 25 years is vintage, or is it older than that now? I don't know. Anyway, there's a difference. Like the new Terminator 2D, no fake game, is retro style. It's not a retro game. It's not a vintage game. It's only just come out, but it's a retro style. So, anyway, what I was thinking about this was the C64 Ultimate that's just come out. I saw it was retailing for $300, so I don't know what the UK equivalent will be, but I suspect it will be about £300, because by the time you've done the exchange but then added the various tax and import stuff in the UK, it normally roughly breaks about even on the exchange. So I expect it will be about that in the UK. If it's a little less, it won't be much less. Maybe £10–11 less by the time you've factored in the VAT and what have you. And I was looking at this and I thought to myself, that's about what my mum and dad paid for my Commodore 64 in the Christmas of 1985. It was about £300. And that came boxed in with the data set, the C2N. Although mine didn't actually come with a C2N, it came with the sort of dark brown coloured one with an adapter on the import. It was actually surplus from the Commodore 16. It was what was bundled in with that, so it was actually not the cream coloured C2N that matched the sort of bread bin C64. It was a different colour, and it was interesting. It was quite nice, but it had an adapter because the cassette, when it plugged into the Commodore 16, had a circular, I can't remember how many pin it was, but it was a circular input. It wasn't the sort of the flat, Jesus, I'm not really a massive tech person, but the ones that plugged into the C64, it was like a flat, not a serial port, I don't think. It was quite small, but oh my lord, it's even worse. It's not good, this. Let's see how deep we are. Looking pretty deep. Let's see. Oh no, not too bad there. This isn't though. Oh, wonderful. Yep, we're not going round that way. So, anyway, it came bundled with that, and it came bundled with a load of games. So, they weren't free. So for that £300, you were getting quite a bit of stuff. It had I want to call it, what was it? What was the name of that thing? It was like a plastic keyboard, piano keyboard that sat over the keys on the Commodore 64. And it had a music program. And in my head, I want to call it the SX64, but it wasn't. Because I think that was the portable, wasn't that the little mini portable computer from that era? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It came with that. It was a music piece of software, and it came with some games. I don't think the joystick that I got with it was in the bundle. It might have been in the bundle from the place where it was purchased from, but it certainly wasn't in the box. It was a Quick Shot 2 joystick. It wasn't a Commodore joystick, but that came with it. But I think that was an additional extra from the shop. Now, whether my mum and dad paid extra for that or not, I don't know. I just know that the C64 was 300 quid. So that was everything that you got back then in 1985. And it was current tech. It was relatively new tech, and it was current tech. Yes, the Amiga had come out. That was the cutting edge tech. But the C64 was yet to get into its prime. That wouldn't be for another couple of 3 years. So it was 300 quid, the point I'm making. Now they're selling this C64 Ultimate for the same price. Now, from what I can make out, I mean, I might be wrong, but when I've seen people doing the unboxing, there's no cassette. There's no C2N cassette player. You know, in fact, this thing apparently has something on it that simulates the sound of a floppy disk drive when you boot up games, which for most people in the UK would mean nothing, because floppy disks were not the standard for the C64. It was cassettes. It was the C2N. That was boxed in with the Commodore 64. The floppy drives were quite an expensive add-on. So yeah, when you look at that, you think, well, okay, so automatically it's not doing the things that the original C64 did. But I mean, that's by the by. I don't think that this thing, I don't think they can call it a genuine Commodore 64, personally. It does things that the original couldn't do. So, where were we? Gotta keep an eye on my battery, because I didn't do anything with this yesterday. I didn't charge it and upload. And normally I charge it while I copy the files over. Of course I haven't done that, so anyhow. So it seems a lot of money to me to be forking out for a bit of retro action. Especially, I mean, most people are buying this to play games on. Let's face it. It's being bought to play games. So, you know, my view of this now is like, why would you pay £300 for something just to play games on it when the games are literally 40 odd years old for the most part? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. £300. Now, some people say, well, what's the problem? No, I have a problem. I just don't see the sense in it. You're paying a lot of money for a piece of kit that is out of date by nearly 50 years. It's 40 odd years, sorry. Oh, 42 years, sorry. Not nearly 50, 42 years. What's the point? You're literally wasting your money. You can get the C64 Mini or the C64, the full-size one that's been out for ages, for a lot cheaper. That also comes with a number of games built in. So what's the point of this? Especially when they're charging $300. I mean, this thing is like, they keep saying the future we were promised. No, it's not. What does that even mean? The future we were promised from who? Who made the promise? That was never a slogan that I ever saw Commodore use. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they did in the US. But it wasn't a catchy slogan. If it was, I'd have remembered it. You know, it's not like Sega does what Nintendo don't. Or like, you know, the Power Glove, now you're playing with power. There's none of that. There's nothing at that level. I mean, it might have been maybe one random ad campaign, but it was certainly never a slogan. So what do they mean by it? What do they mean by it all? We weren't promised anything. And the C64 would not be what you would have attached that slogan to anyway. If anything, it would have been the Amiga. Because that was the new kid on the block around that time. You know, in '85, that was when it came out. But what future were we promised? I think you need to be more specific. I mean, it certainly had nothing to do with getting cheap computers into people's homes. That honour falls to Sir Clive Sinclair. So, you know, what future is this? Who came up with that slogan? The point is, I mean, let me be clear. I've got nothing against this computer. I've nothing against it at all. I've nothing against the C64 Ultimate. If you want one of them things, knock yourself out, go ahead. Have fun. I hope it works, and I hope that you enjoy it if you do get one. But I just want to know why it's £300. Why is it so expensive? Because it's been marketed as a genuine C64, and that's important to remember. It's been marketed as a genuine Commodore 64. Now, if this thing has stuff in it which makes it more powerful, then it's not a genuine Commodore 64. It's an emulator. It's a completely different computer with emulation capabilities. And this is where people do tend to get a little bit shitty about these things, and this is why I'm saying that it can be quite an emotive subject. But I'm sorry, the C64 had a very specific chipset depending on which model. So if you had the original bread bin, it had a very specific chipset. It did specific things, and that was it. Right? You couldn't buy a version of the C64 with disco lights in it. You didn't buy a version of the C64 back then with USB slots on it, because USB wasn't even a thing. You didn't get a C64 that had maybe a built-in speaker that emulated the sounds of a floppy disk drive when you were loading. Again, that just didn't happen. I had one, so I know. I had two. Now, there were revisions. I had the C64C, and that was different. I had a different model of the sound chip on it. It wasn't as good as the one that I had in the bread bin C64. The sampled sounds, digitized sounds, were quiet. Sometimes they were barely audible. And the chipboard was different. I know because I tried to swap the SID chip out of my bread bin C64 into the C64C, and it wouldn't work. It wasn't compatible. Not all, it was even worse. The digitized sounds were better, but it wouldn't play the rest of the music, it wouldn't play the rest of the audio. The other audio channels weren't working. So, yeah. And that's kind of the point I'm making. It's, yes, there were different versions of the C64, but there were different models. But they all did the same thing. I mean, it's not like you got a C64C and we're like, oh my God, the graphics are much better on this. The sound certainly wasn't better. You know, it wasn't like a more powerful version. It was basically a cosmetic redesign to bring it into line with the shape of the Amiga, to modernize what it looked like. So you had a family of computers that looked like they were part of a family of computers. That was the purpose of it. And in the process, they obviously redesigned the motherboard. They did some changes to the motherboard. They might not have redesigned it, but they clearly did some changes, and they did some changes to the chipset, but it was still doing the same thing. The point is, you can't sell something as being the genuine article. You're making it out like this version of the C64 is somehow superior to other versions. You're calling it the ultimate. I think the C64 Mini is a great piece of kit, personally. I've got one. It does everything that I need it to do. And it's not something that is going to be an inconvenient slab of plastic that, you know, I'm constantly having to move around to find a home for. And again, I just want to know, why is this thing worth so much money? The ZX Spectrum Next, or the Spectrum Next, I don't know if it is the ZX, call it ZX Spectrum, but the Spectrum Next, I can see what that is. That is a Spectrum bought out that would have been, in the idea of it being, if Sir Clive Sinclair hadn't sold Sinclair to Amstrad, that would have more than likely, in the idea of people, that's their idea of what the next Spectrum would have been in the series. Not the QL, because that was the thing I think that pretty much killed Sinclair. But, you know, as a home computer to play games on and do a little bit of tinkering in the programming department, that's the idea. So I get that. That's like almost like the Commodore 128. Although the Commodore 128 was, they never exploited its power. They never really pushed that, which was a shame. But, you know, it never gained any kind of serious traction over the C64. Not going down that path. So, you know, you kind of get where the next is coming from. But they didn't call it the Spectrum Plus 4. You know, there's a clear difference between that and the older Spectrums that came out in the 80s. I mean, it has a similar design, but it's different. Here I'm getting to my point. I better have, because like I was saying about my battery here, I need to keep an eye on it. Here's the thing. This comes across as being a very cynical cash grab. What's the plan for this? Is the Amiga next? We have the Amiga 1200 that is being released. We have that coming along. We have that. So I'm asking the question again. This is from the same people that did the C64 Mini and the full-size C64 that we released a few years ago. They also did the VIC-20 as well. And I think the same people also did the Spectrum, which was based on the 48K Spectrum design, but actually would play stuff from the more advanced Spectrums, like the 128K Spectrum stuff. So that's really my point. If they then say, well, right, we're going to do the Amiga next, are they going to try and wrestle the rights away from this other company? Is that the objective here? To wrestle the rights away from, is it Retro Games that do the what's it? I think it is. Is that what their objective is going to be? Because if so, that's really cynical. And this is essentially going to be about nothing more than making money. And I don't like that, because if they're going to put this thing out at £300, are they going to start putting other stuff out for more money? What are they going to sell the Amiga at? 500 quid, which was about the price it was in the late 80s, early 90s. I think that was how much the Batman pack was. I think that was about 500. I might be wrong. It's just a figure that's stuck in my head. Is that the objective? You know, are we supposed to do the time warp again? Go back to paying the price for really old tech? The price of what it was back in the 80s? No thanks. I mean, for that money, let's just say for that money, you could easily buy a £500 laptop or even a £500 PC that will emulate all of both the C64 and the Amiga. It'll emulate all of that stuff quite comfortably and do more besides, and absolutely bury those old computers into the ground in terms of capabilities and performance. You would have a modern day system running the latest software, maybe not so much the latest games, or shall we say, the very graphically intensive games, but it'll run some stuff. It'll run a lot of stuff on minimum settings, and it'll run some stuff on reasonably good settings. And if you're playing stuff like Stardew Valley or the new Terminator game, it'll probably run them flat out. But the point is, you'll have something that's far more capable, that isn't going to be locked into a time warp. And for me, bearing that in mind, it's really hard not to see this as something that is a cynical cash grab. Now, I don't know that anybody associated with this project. I don't know what their intentions are. But it seems to me like this is an attempt to monetize old stuff, to make a stack of money out of old tech. And I've got to confess, I really don't like that, because the retro community has kept this stuff alive for years. You know, if you were a kid like me back in the 80s, you know, you're in your late 40s, your 50s, hell, even older, you love this stuff. And you like dipping your toe back in that scene because there's something charming about it, there's something nice. And the scene's been kept alive by passionate people with enthusiasm. And, you know, a lot of the people haven't made anything out of it. They haven't made any money out of doing this, or very little, if any. And they do it by locking stuff behind paywalls, shutting places down, you know, forcing other companies to surrender whatever licenses they have to produce, whether it be games or hardware, so they can resell it, you know, stick a few bells and whistles on and resell something at a much higher price, which is going to give you tantamount the same experience, pretty much. And I don't like that. I don't like that. There are, you know, the retro scene has been going for many, many years without input from these people, without involvement from these people. And it's been trundling along rather nicely. But the reality of the situation is this: that scene is just naturally going to die out. That's what's going to happen. It's naturally going to fade away. That's what's going to happen with that scene. And the reason is because people get older. Priorities shift. You're not going to get too many young people coming in. You're just not. And this is the thing, to me, it's like, there's a cynicism to it all. We're going to make money out of you while we can. And it's not really celebrating the past. You're not really doing that. And before anybody says this, because this is the thing that always drives me mad, well, in today's money, the C64 would have been about £1,000. Yeah. But the C64 wouldn't be being sold under normal circumstances today, because the tech is bloody ancient. It's way in the past. And it's a false equivalency, because people get more money now than they did then. So it's relative. You can't just transport something from 30 years ago and convert it into today's money and say, it'll cost you £1,000, right? Well, people earn a hell of a lot more money than they did 40 years ago. So it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the same. By that standard, that's like saying, well, by today's standards, you'd be buying a PC for £1,000. Yeah, that's the going rate. No one's buying a Commodore 64 for £1,000 today. If you stack its value on its capabilities in relation to all of the tech that's around today, it's ancient. It's absolutely ancient. It's not a brand new piece of tech like an iPhone. I mean, your bloody microwave has probably got more technical capabilities than a C64 these days. It's old tech. It's old. Why would you pay the same price for the tech today as you would have done when it was cutting edge? You wouldn't. You can buy a cheapo smartphone that is less than what they're asking for this C64 Ultimate, and it will bury the C64 Ultimate into the ground. So it's not relative. It's a load of old nonsense. People do this all the time and it infuriates me. It's not how it works. That's not how it works. Call it water. That's going to be a nightmare, that. And I really do wish people would stop saying that. Well, 300 years ago, if you took something then, yeah, it was cutting edge technology at £300. Today, it's ancient technology. And okay, if they've added things in that makes it do what the original C64 couldn't do, then it's not a real C64, is it? It's a hybrid. It's an emulator. And why would you pay £300 for an emulator when you can download one online for free and play it on a computer that is immensely more powerful? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It's like trying to tickle a nostalgia thing. Not that long ago, you could go on eBay and buy a genuine Commodore 64 for less than 100 quid. I mean, I might be going back a few years, but they were at one point, we were selling them for 30, 40 quid. Second hand. I don't know. It's just my thoughts. I say I've nothing against it, and I'm nothing against people going out and buying this thing. You know, I hope they enjoy it. I just don't get it. I don't get the price point. I don't understand that, and I don't understand the attraction to own something that is essentially 40 odd years out of date. It had its day. I get buying the Mini because it's about playing the games and you want to play the games on that. I get that. I get even the full size one that they released, which was about 100 quid. I get that, even though again, it's still money that is for something that's going to end up being a dust magnet, because that's what was going to happen ultimately with these things. I can't help feel it's just a cynical cash grab and an attempt to lock licenses away behind a paywall, because the biggest value I think in a lot of the retro stuff these days is that in the license, not in the product, and that's what worries me. That's what worries me. Anyway, we'll call it there. We did manage to do it today. It was doable today. So yeah, hopefully I'll be around. Hopefully the weather will hold off for Sunday. If not, I'll be back whenever. So thank you for watching.